This video is part of the Director Project, a playlist series where each month YouTubers from around the globe come to analyze a particular director. This month's director, Christopher Nolan. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the playlist. And if you want to contribute, tweet your video to @CultPopsure and it will be added to the playlist. The term metaphysical subjectivism refers to the concept that our own individual perception is the only unquestionable fact of existence. After all, if I were to dream that I were dancing at a club, making love with my significant other, or frying bacon for breakfast, would the experience to me be any less enjoyable in the moment? It is only upon waking that the somber realization slowly washes over me, that the club is closed down, the other half of my bed is empty, and, perhaps most tragically, I ran out of bacon several days ago.
Oh no! Jesus Christ!
If in this reality I am saddened and miserable, I may find myself returning to slumber, chasing the happiness I felt when I was asleep. Is an illusory happiness any less valid to the person who feels it? And if the alternative is a reality of pain and misery, can anyone begrudge another for adopting the illusion?
You don't believe in one reality anymore. So choose to be here.
The philosopher René Descartes is widely credited in the West for originating Methodic doubt, a skeptical methodology for doubting the truth of one's beliefs. This philosophy became known as the cogito, or cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. In cinematic terms, it is difficult to find a mainstream Hollywood director more enamored with translating philosophy to popular cinema than Christopher Nolan. Whether this means questioning the moral validity of safety in a surveillance state, the efficacy of a neutered Western liberal democracy versus anarchic populism, or elimination of one's memory as a means of erasing moral guilt and responsibility for one's actions, Nolan interweaves traditional entertainment with complex philosophical questions, doing his best to balance his responsibilities as entertainer and philosopher. Inception is a film that combines the tropes of the classic heist movie and the precepts of Zhang Zhao's dream conundrum. Dominic Cobb is a criminal extractor, someone who can enter another person's dreams and extract information from their subconscious. For obvious reasons, this would be advantageous for espionage and corporate raiding, but we also learn that Cobb is a fugitive from justice over the murder of his wife. Cobb is offered a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity by one of his own targets. Implant an idea in a business rival's mind, and his criminal status will be erased. Cobb assembles a team that includes Ariadne, an architecture student. After the deal is set, Ariadne learns that Cobb's own psyche is haunted by a recurring series of nightmares in which his wife Mal invades and berates him. Mal is the manifestation of guilt Cobb harbors over reckless experimentation with the dream world. Unable to distinguish between her dreams and the real world, Mal commits suicide, assuming that she will wake up. Cobb's crew is successful in implanting the idea and saving their teammate, but it is the film's final shot that has been puzzled and pored over, dissected for every bit of minutia or clue. The final shot sees Cobb spin Mal's totem, a device that will tell the user if they are in the dream world or the real world. But he hears his children playing outside and leaves the spinning top to be with them. Like The Matrix over a decade earlier, Inception postulates a world in which its players cannot distinguish between reality and the dream state. The former more obviously wearing Descartes' philosophical question on its sleeve. Descartes reasoned that our own perceptions of the world, touch, taste, sight, smell, and sound, may be controlled by some outside force, a malicious demon. That demon could have created the entirety of our surroundings, our sun, our moon, our stars, the house we live in, our loved ones, all figments of the malicious demon's imagination, designed to fool us into believing that we live in a false reality. Descartes' theory did not extend to pleasure or torment, only to the nature of reality and the existence of a higher being. For meditations on experience, we must turn to German philosopher Edmund Husserl and the philosophical movement known as Phenomenology. Husserl's phenomenology requires us to ignore our judgments about the natural world and focus on our subjective experiences. This suspension of judgment about the natural world requires us to bracket off our questions and analyses about objective reality. Once we jettison our hold on whether something is real, independent of how we experience it, then we can begin to focus on the one thing Descartes tells us we can know. How does it make us feel? Facts may not care about your feelings, but phenomenology certainly does. What's more, Husserl divided this kind of mental bracketing into two types of epiches, the Greek word for a suspension of judgment. He distinguished between the universal epiche, which requires the suspension of assumption about all aspects of one's existence, and the local epiche, which only requires one to discard assumptions about a particular thing. So basically, the only thing I can be sure of is that I exist, because I'm able to generate thoughts about this topic. Wait, you might be thinking? If I can only be certain of my existence, and I can't be certain that the people around me aren't real, then I could do basically anything I want. I could steal the fries off of the person next to me. I could rob a bank. I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody. The people around me aren't real. Therefore, the moral consequences of my actions are not real. And for the answer to that, you have to head over to Husserl's predecessor, Immanuel Kant. Kant's teachings led Husserl to his conclusions, but Kant also addressed the moral conundrum that goes along with solipsism, stating that when one acknowledges that they exist because they have the ability to generate their own thoughts, they also assume responsibility for their actions. In other words, the outcome is irrelevant to morality. A person must always do what they feel is right. And that's where we arrive back at Christopher Nolan. Ultimately, Nolan is adopting the position of Zhao and Descartes. When one cannot distinguish between dream and reality, all levels of reality are valid. Unlike The Matrix, in which accepting the red pill means actively casting off the illusory nature of a universe in which they have trapped you, Inception posits the choice between red pill and blue pill as a Morton's fork, a false choice with no discernible difference in outcome.
You don't believe in one reality anymore. So choose. Choose to be here.
Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth, then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. It is an oft abused and misinterpreted poem. Many take the final two lines as a paean to individuality and self-determination. But the context of the poem tells us that the important thing is not the path that one takes. It is the story they write for themselves. In Greek mythology, it is Ariadne who helps Theseus escape from the labyrinth by giving him a ball of twine to follow. In Inception, she serves much the same role, describing to Cobb his only way out of the labyrinth of invasive dreams. In this case, though, she acts as more of a therapist, advising Cobb that Maul, the minotaur that he must defeat in the maze in order to escape, is a manifestation of Cobb's own guilt, and that he must find a way to forgive himself for his complicity in Maul's demise. So when Cobb's version of Maul tells him that he doesn't believe in one reality anymore, which he says is true, the recognition that there is no one true reality, and even if there is, one couldn't know it, frees one up to choose the reality that they want. Cobb, however, takes a page out of Kant's book and does what he feels is right, forgiving himself for Mal's death and leaving to search for Saito, even though that will feel like an eternity of torment.
Saito's dead by now. That means he's down here somewhere. It means I have to find him.
In the final shot, the audience is left to ponder the question of whether Cobb is reunited with his children, or if it is all just an illusion of his mind. Nolan's response, like Zhao, like Descartes, like Husserl, and like Kant, is, unsurprisingly, yes.